We've been working our way through Proverbs and we've been looking at different topics. And if you've listened to any of my sermons or if you've been here when I've been preaching on Proverbs, I've often started by saying, what are your thoughts and feelings about, and then I talk about the topic, whether it was brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, families. Well, today's no different because today I'm preaching on the topic of work. What comes to mind when you think of work? What thoughts or feelings conjure up inside you when you think of work? Perhaps they're positive. I mean, for some, maybe you're someone that when you think of work, you do it with joy because you know you're retired and you no longer have to go to work. Your working days are over. Some of you may see it as a joy because you love your job. Getting up every morning and going to work excites you and you can't wait to get there. Or maybe you're a student or just coming out of uni and you've been working and studying hard towards your dream job. And you've just finished or you're just beginning that journey that you've worked so hard for. So of course, if you fit into any of those categories, the topic of work for you is quite positive. Others, on the other hand, see the topic of work as negative. Maybe you're sitting here and you don't like your job. For you, work is something that you feel stuck in or that you have to do, simply to pay the bills and to keep food on the table. Or perhaps due to health reasons or personal reasons or companies going bust, you've had to quit or even worse, been stood down from your job. And in a sense, you've lost your identity. Or perhaps you're someone that really wants to work and have been searching and have no work. Even if you're a high school TAFE uni student, even if you've been in the same job for 20 days or 20 years, even if you've retired, it doesn't matter. The topic of work never really goes away. That's because working and being a human being go together. You are working, sorry to tell you, to the day you die. So talking about work is a good exercise. It's something that we should do because when you talk about work, it helps people. So it should be no surprise at all that the topic of work is touched many times throughout Proverbs. And today I want to take a step back and look at what does Proverbs have to say about work. Today I'm going to really focus on two areas. What does Proverbs have to say about bad work? And what does Proverbs have to say about good work? And it really condenses down to two things. You really fit into two kind of categories. Lazy workers or godly workers. And so let's start with the negative. Let's begin with laziness. Now straight away you could be, that's not me. I'm not lazy. I'm a good worker. Well, I think Solomon understood this. He understood that people don't like to be confronted and told they're lazy. If you're a parent, you'll know this is true, especially for children. So to help get the message across, Proverbs introduces us to a lazy character. The name of this character is called the sluggard. He's referred to 14 times throughout Proverbs. He's referred to in a way that is frequently presented as a joke. It's done in cosmic terms, perhaps to soften the blow. Let me give you some examples. The sluggard buries his hand in the dish and will not even bring it back to his mouth. Take in this picture. The sluggard sits down at the table, food is put in front of him, he gets his fork, he puts the food on his fork, but he's so lazy that's as far as he gets. Lifting the fork to his mouth to eat the food is just too hard. What about this one? As a door turns on its hinges, so does the sluggard in his bed. The problem with the sluggard is it's not just he likes to lie in bed, he's hinged to it. He can't get out of it. He turns one way and then the only thing he can do, he turns the other way. He's like a door hinged to his bed. You know what that means? He never gets up. Then for me, one of the funniest. Then the sluggard says, there is a lion outside. I should be killed in the streets. The sluggard is full of excuses. He always has a reason for not doing the work that needs to get done. And most times they are stupid. because he wakes up and thinks, I can't go to work today because there are lions out there, and if I step foot outside, I'm going to be killed. I will just stay home. When we read proverbs like these, we're meant to probably smile and laugh. But proverbs like these are also meant to make us think. As I said, the sluggard is referred to 14 times in Proverbs. Even though it's done in a comical way, in the sluggard we see the great dangers of laziness. Because all jokes aside, the life of the sluggard ends in ruins. Proverbs shows us 4 things about this sluggard. Proverbs shows us what this unproductive, lazy person looks like. Let me give you some. Firstly, they are slow to start. The sluggard does not plough in autumn. He will seek at a harvest, but have nothing. This proverb draws attention to the long-term effects of putting things off that you need to know you've got to get done. There is a season for ploughing, there is a season for sowing, and there is a season for reaping. And if you know anything about ploughing, you will know it is hard work. So much so the sluggard does not want to do it. Now, the context of writing this is very important to us because this is after those 2 crossings, remember, that Barb spoke about. When God's people came into Canaan, every family was given a plot of land. We're told in Deuteronomy, God gave them homes that they did not build. God gave them wells that they did not dig and vineyards that they did not plant. God gave them these and their job was to sustain them. Everything they needed for life was theirs. And more than that, it was all given freely in abundance by God. Their part was to work the fields that God had given them. Plough, sow, plant, eat. So the people at the time of this book of Proverbs was written, working in the fields that the Almighty God had freely given them, that was the work God had called them to do. But we see here, he's not doing it. He's slow to start. He does not plough in autumn. So when the harvest comes, he sees all his neighbours bringing in their grain, bringing in their produce that will sustain them throughout the bad months that are coming up from their land. But the sluggard has nothing. To help in this matter, to help the sluggard, lazy person to think about it, the damage that they're doing in not preparing for the future, he brings in another person to help in laziness. He challenges the sluggard by using insects. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, any officer or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. These tiny little insects are wise enough to know that what you do now relates to what you're going to have in the future. Little ants know that you need to prepare for the future. And what is the quality of an ant? They do it without being told or without supervision. While the unproductive person, the lazy sluggard, needs to be supervised all the time, ants by instinct know the work that needs to be done. They see what needs to be done, and guess what? They do it. Without any chief, overseer, boss, foreman, ruler, manager, whatever you want to call it, the work gets done. But compare those indigenous ants to the sluggard who delays. He postpones. He procrastinates. He said, it's not good weather today. I'll get round to ploughing tomorrow. And of course, he never does. And so when it comes time for the harvest, to get food that you need him to survive, he has nothing. Nothing. So he's slow to start. We learn this about him as well. He's easily distracted. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits will have plenty of poverty. What keeps the sluggard from doing the work that God had called him to do? The sluggard is easily distracted. That is, he lacks focus. Rather than doing what God has called him to do, this proverb points out that his problem is he follows worthless pursuits. He should be doing A, but he's chasing B, C, and D. The things that are distracting him are not even good. The proverb says they are worthless. They're not going to put food on his table. When I read that proverb, I couldn't help but think of that great saying, the person who is fascinated by everything consistently achieves nothing. You know, from the time we get up out of bed in the morning till our heads hits the pillow at night, we live in a world of constant distractions. Things that want to take our attention, things that want to take our time. And sadly, so often we fall for them so easily. The reason this sluggard has nothing at harvest is not because he was stubborn or refused to work. It was simply that he never quite got round to doing it. Other things got in the way. He was distracted. We have this proverb. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of hands to rest. Notice the repeated word in here, the key word? Little. It's just a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of hands. The sluggard, the lazy person is one that says, don't lecture me, don't push me, don't nag me. I'll get round to ploughing when I'm ready. But right now, I just feel like a little sleep. Well, not even really a little sleep. I just want to have a little snooze. Well, not even a really little snooze. I just want to really just let me cross my arms and fold my hands for a few minutes. Even though he says, don't worry, I'll get it done. I'll get round to the ploughing. All of these little things are one distraction after another, so the work never gets done. This person makes too many concessions, too many postponements, too many delays. It all happens little by little, and his life slips away. So the sluggard has no harvest. It's not because he's made some grand decision, I'm never going to plough. He had no harvest because those little small distractions that took up his time, he never got round to doing the work that God had called him to do. So the sluggard is slow to start and easily distracted. What else does he do? He does not finish. Whoever is slothful will not roast his game, but the diligent man will get precious wealth. Now we're at the point where the sluggard has finally made a start to work. He's got to the point where he needs to eat. So he goes out and he gets food. But those patterns we just looked at, they're continuing. He brings the meat home, but then something happens. Maybe he gets distracted, or maybe by the time he got home he wasn't hungry anymore, or maybe he was so worried about being eaten by the lions that were still outside waiting to get him. Or perhaps he simply lost interest in eating. Whatever the reason was, he brought the meat home for sure, but he doesn't see the job through to the end. He doesn't finish the job. He never gets round to cooking the meat he brought home. I think what we are to notice here is important for us. The pattern of this person's life is this. The pattern of the sluggard is lazy, slothful person is he doesn't finish what he started. Whether he gets easily distracted or something new catches his eye and off he goes, moving on to something else or some other job or some other task, the pattern of this person's life is the tasks that they start are never continued or never completed. This person always leaves behind them a trail of incomplete projects and unfinished business. And as a result, this takes up the fourth mark of an unproductive person we get from Proverbs. He is unable to rest. Now, not being unable to rest may be a surprising aspect of the sluggard's life. Why do I say that? Well, because as you just saw, where does sluggard spend most of his time? In his bed. In fact, he's into his bed. But here's the irony. The person who keeps putting off what they know needs to be done is a person who can ultimately never rest. Even when he sleeps, he never really rests. Because what is always in the back of his mind is the thought of knowing, I have not done the work I know God has called me to do. I mentioned last week how the creation story shows us something about friendship. Well, I can also mention it again this week because the creation story also shows us something about work and rest. We are told in the creation story how God rested. But more importantly, we're told when he rested. When did he rest? after all the work was completed. The creation story shows it was once God had completed all his work, then and only then did he rest. And so the price of putting off or not doing the work God has called you to do is you're never really going to be able to find rest. No matter how long you sleep for, there will always be a war going on inside you. Deep down inside, you will know, I haven't done the work that God has called me to do. And now you may be thinking, hang on, I haven't seen the proverb for this yet. Well, this is where I get it from. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly surprised. Notice that this Proverbs is about the soul. It's one of the only ones about the soul. A proverb talking about our own individual inner experiences. And what this proverb points out is it's not only the barns of the sluggard that are empty, the soul, the individual inner experience of the sluggard is empty as well. While it's true, living like the sluggard in laziness will have consequences on what happens around us, it will do so much worse. Because laziness will not only empty your wallets, laziness has the power to empty your soul, your insides. So that means constantly avoiding what God has called you to do is soul destroying. This is why the soul of the sluggard craves. He says, the soul of the sluggard craves. What's he craves? They crave a harvest. Oh, how he would like to be like his neighbours who are seeing the benefits of their diligent work and their focus and their harvest. He wants to have a harvest like that. He craves a harvest like that, but we're told he does not have it. Why? Because he won't do the work and preparation needed to get one. So Proverbs says he gets nothing. So now because of this, because his soul is craving yet has nothing, he can't find any rest. Because he's always in that dire situation of need, both on the outside and on the inside. And so that's the first part of my sermon. Godly wisdom of Proverbs when it comes to work is don't be like a sluggard. Don't be lazy. Don't be slow to start, easily distracted, not finishing tasks or unable to rest. Now, I'm quite sure no one here today or watching online or wherever you may be, for that matter, wants to be like the sluggard. Well, I'm hoping you don't want to be like the sluggard. Well, his profile gives us some really helpful guide in understanding what it takes to not be a lazy person. Here are 4 questions I want to leave you with from this first part. Point number 1 was, he's slow to start. Ask yourself, what do I need to begin? What is God calling me to do? He's easily distracted. Where do I need to stay focused in what God has called me to do? He does not finish. What do I need to complete? He is unable to rest. What is it that I'm craving or don't have that is stopping me from resting? If you can answer these 4 questions honestly and act on your answers, you will go a long way towards not being a sluggard. What do I need to begin? What do I need to stay focused? What do I need to complete? What is it that I'm craving that stops me from having rest? So that's the negative. When it comes to work, don't be these things. Now for the positive. What about godly wisdom? What things do we see that we are to work with in godly wisdom? Well, to start with, godly wisdom tells us when you work with integrity. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but an accurate rate, finds favour with him. Now, this proverb may be a little hard to understand, but what's being described here is actually something that was very common in this day. It was an everyday occurrence to the people reading this proverb. And it was referring to work. It's actually referring to the work of a marketplace. It's about a transaction between a seller and a buyer. You see, the way things were bought and sold in this time was to do with scales and weights. And sadly, they didn't have electric ones. You couldn't just walk up and scan a code and then have somebody take your credit card and then the transaction was done. No, the way it happened in these days is they were done with scales, but not your bathroom type of scales, which we all know are compulsive liars because there's no way known you can put on 3 kilos in 2 days. But these scales did have the ability to lie. I'm sure we all know this, but just in case you're under 25 and you don't know about these traditional scales, this is how they worked. They had 2 sides. And if you were going to buy a kilo of flour at the marketplace, the business owner would grab your kilo of flour and put it on one side of the scale, and then they would pull out a counterweight, and on that counterweight it said in Aramaic, Greek or Hebrew or whatever, 1 kilo. And he'd put that on the other side of the scale. And then what would happen is, once the scales evened out and balanced, you would know you're getting your money's worth. Even scales meant that when you paid for 1 kilo of flour, guess what you got? 1 kilo of flour. Now let's just say though, you happen to come across a dishonest or a deceitful seller, and their 1 kilo counterweight actually weighed 3/4 of a kilo. When you brought a kilo of flour to them, and they put that on the scale and this on the scale, and the scale's balanced, you're getting ripped off. You wouldn't have any idea of knowing this was happening. This was actually in the law. If you read Leviticus, he actually warns about this, about carrying dishonest weights. But what you're looking at is you're saying his weight says 1 kilo and it's balanced. This is a fair trade, but it's not. A lot of dishonesty is happening here. This practice was regular enough occurrence, even though you had to watch sellers very carefully, you still had to trust in what they brought out of their bag, that their weight was a kilo if it said a kilo. That's the idea behind this proverb. A false balance is an abomination, we're told. That's what the word means to the Lord. This is all tied up with dishonest work practices. It is only wrong. It's not only wrong, we're told it's an abomination. But we have a but. But just weight is his delight. Of course, this is the opposite. The Lord delights in honest work practices. Now, this statement is probably not a big shocker to you. Even if you're brand new to church or Christianity, even if you don't read your Bible that much, whether you've been a Christian for a short time or a long time, we know the importance of working with integrity and honesty. It's just common sense. And this isn't even an exclusive a Christian thing. I mean, if we were to go out into the streets of Aldinga this afternoon and ask people what makes a good worker, what's an important quality that they should have, chances are they'd say, well, they shouldn't be lazy and they should work with integrity. But I do believe there are a few things that we should consider when we read the Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights finds favour with him. I mean, I can't help but think this Proverbs is actually a helpful visual for us. It should, if you like, prompt us to do like a mental checklist. A checklist on our own work, on our own study, or on our own test-taking habits. This proverb should prompt us to ask ourselves, where might be I shading the truth? Or where am I cutting corners or bending the rules? Or where have we been dishonest and tipping the scales in our own work habits? Perhaps you may be doing it in order to get a promotion, or to promote your reputation, or to get better grades, or to get better pay. But if you're doing that, this proverb should prompt you in asking the question, how wise is that action in the long run? How wise or living godly am I doing if I'm cheating, stealing, lying, just to make my way forward? Proverbs would say doing this, using dishonest scales and inaccurate weights, is not only wrong, it's an abomination to the Lord. It's an abomination. So that's one thing this proverb says we should ask ourselves, where am I being dishonest? Well, what about the next bit? A just weight is his delight. God delights in honest work. We should ask ourselves, how do I live out a just, honest weight in my workplace? How do I become good, ethical, honest person in my workplace? How do I show integrity? And it may be as simple as don't steal time from your boss. If you get a 15-minute break, take 15-minute break, not 16. Don't watch YouTube all day in your office. Don't take 3 hours lunches. Don't steal office supplies. For the young people here, you students, think about, is your work in being a student, it's the same to you. How do you become a good, ethical, honest person as a student? Well, again, it may be simple as don't cut and paste last section off the internet. You guys are at a terrible time with AI. How easy is it to put into AI, copy something, and then go in and hand it into your teacher, pretending that it's your thoughts, your ideas, and your works? Do you know, we did this at staff, Gerald, Matt and I, we put into, ChatGPT, a sermon on Proverbs, and gee, it was good. We were so tempted, it'd be so easy just to, but that's not ethical. That's dishonest. It's not only wrong, that's an abomination to the Lord. A just weight is his delight. God delights in honest work. The basics of ethical living certainly applies to our work life. Whether you're working in an office, whether you're working from home, whether you're a full-time student, or even if your job is being a full-time parent or a grandparent, doing the right thing and not doing the wrong thing is important to God and godly wisdom. Do you know another thing I thought about this verse? It reveals to us something. If doing this dishonest scales thing is so wrong to God, if it's an abomination to him, then that tells me something. He must see it. This tells me God sees our works habits. Our bosses mightn't see it, our teachers mightn't see what happens, but this verse warns us God sees the ones who are using unbalanced scales. He sees it and it's an abomination. And something else I thought along the lines of the same lines, and God seeing that. If you've been on the other end of the scales, if you've been ripped off, if you've been cheated, you can take some encouragement from this proverb. If you've found yourself on the receiving end of an unjust scale or an unethical practice, if you've missed out on a promotion because someone lied, maybe you've been passed over for a promotion because you refused to do the wrong thing and you did the right thing. Or I know for some people, because of the work you do, you find yourself at times, you're put in bad ethical dilemmas over and over again. For students, if you've missed out on being top of the class because you know someone else cheated on the test and got a higher mark, or if you get in trouble for something that you had nothing to do with, the teachers, the bosses, the managers, they may never see that stuff, but we can be assured that God did. He knows that situation fully. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights finds favour with him. God really keeps accounts. He sees your efforts to be ethical and do the right thing and to live with integrity. This should come, I hope, as some sort of encouragement to you. To work with godly wisdom is to work with integrity. Secondly, to work with godly wisdom is to work with compassion. Do not rob the poor because he is poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate. This proverb is talking about the poor and the afflicted. Who are they? People who are weak, people who are troubled, people who are lacking resources. And what about them? What's he say not to do them? Don't rob them. Don't steal from them or cheat from them just because they have no money or power to stop you. At the gate, it says. The gate was in a way a workplace. This was where judges and leaders made legal decisions. It was where all leaders hung out and made decisions and talked about the news of the day. What's it say not to do at this place? When you're at the gate, don't crush the afflicted. But how do you live that out? Right? Good. How do you stop robbing the poor and crushing the afflicted? How do you live this out? Start with compassion. Martin Luther wrote this about this proverb. Great quote. One thing he stated was, part of God's calling on all the work we do was to love your neighbour through your work. He said, when we read proverbs like this, we see we are to care for the people which God has given to us in our occupations. He even took it deeper and he said, don't just love the people that you work for or that you work with. He said, so many of us, because of our occupations, we have people we partner with, we have people we serve as clients, we have students we teach, we have patients we care for, we have customers we serve. He says, in all of those situations, through your work, love them. Show compassion. Work with compassion. That means in your workplace, you may hold a position of authority over people, but don't take advantage of somebody simply because you can. Don't take advantage of someone because they don't have the resources to challenge you. Don't rob, fight, or somehow show injustice to people simply because you know they can't do anything about it. Working that way is not working with godly wisdom. Working with godly wisdom is to work with compassion to those around you. So even if you work with or manage 2 people or 200 people, even if you supervise a class of 3rd graders, or even if your current workplace is managing and looking after your family or elderly parents, just because you're in a position of power, authority, or influence, don't crush the person who comes to you in a weak place. If Martin Luther is correct, God has put you in that place, working with those people to love and to show compassion to. So whatever position of authority or influence you may have, use that position of influence or authority and power to care for those that are there. Let me give you some more questions to ask yourself. Am I being generous as I can with what I have? Am I being as fair as I can? Am I using my position of authority and influence to show compassion, especially to the poor and the afflicted? And just as in the case, if you needed more incentive to do this, well, just as he said with the scales, God sees this. But the proverb goes on and says this: the Lord will plead their case and rob those of life who rob them. He not only sees what's taken place, he acts. He will defend the poor and punish those who aren't showing compassion. So working with godly wisdom is working with integrity, compassion, and finally one more. Working with godly wisdom is working with excellence. Do you see someone who's skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials or low rank. This proverb highlights that when we work in a dedicated, excellent way, this will naturally lead to great opportunities. Or a truly skilled and diligent, excellent worker will be recognised and elevated to serve important, influential people, rather than obscure, low-ranked people. Now, can I just remind us of this? When we read proverbs like this, we must remember that proverbs are proverbs. They are not promises. The reason I say this and the reason I'm reminding people of this is because I've had people speak to me over the course of my time about this verse. And they've told me things like how many years they have worked with excellence. They have served in their workplace so well, but they've never got a promotion. They've never got any recognition. They've never seen any king or any higher management. So this must be not true. For the youth of today, I know some students tell me that they've worked hard, they've studied hard, they wrote great essays, they got good grades, but they've never won awards in school. They've never got to go and stand up before the principal and get recognised for the work that they do. So I know we can work hard and sometimes never get a lot of recognition for what we do. I mean, for example, let me give you a very silly example. I don't know who the coach of the year was last year in our local footy area. I have no idea who that was. Maybe you do. Maybe it was even you. Maybe you were the coach of the year for our local footy comp. I don't know who that person was. As a pastor, we often have people in Flinders. I go to Flinders Medical Centre quite a lot. But I don't know whose picture's on the wall for the nurse of the month in the hospital. I don't know who that is. Again, maybe you work there and it's you. Congratulations if it's you. Maybe you know who the nurse of the month is at Flinders. But I don't. But what I do know is this. Both those people held an incredible, influential position. And they were good at influencing the people around them. I'm sure the players on the team or the patients on the floor, they would know those people. I'm sure many families and friends connected with the coach and nurse, they would know them people. And they would also know just how important the position that they held was. But I don't know them, and chances are I probably never will. So I know you can be competent, highly competent in what you do. You can be incredibly faithful to the work that God's called you to do. You can be working with integrity, compassion and excellence and never get a lot of recognition for what you do. If that's you, don't misread this proverb. Don't start to think this proverb says someone skilled in their work will serve before kings. Well, I've never served before a king, so I mustn't be skilled in my work. Or don't read this proverb and think my only measure of my excellence in the work I do is based on whether I get good recognition from important people. I've never got that. Seeing and thinking about this proverb that way is a pathway to disaster. So don't do it. Just because compared to other jobs or other professions or our family, what we do may be relatively unknown. The work we do may not get sometimes past our front door. That doesn't mean what you are doing is any less important, any less valuable, or any less pleasing to God. As Francis Schaeffer said, there is no little people and no little places in God's economy. That's because at the end of the day, whatever work we are called to do as Christians, when we do that work, we are working for or we are serving before a king. You are serving before a king. And not just any king, you are serving before the King of Kings. And remember, it has been pointed out a lot today, as you are working and serving before that king does see your work. That's why when we serve the Lord with our gifts in this place He's placed us in, when we are continually striving to be the best in our workplaces, when we are working for Him and serving Him in integrity, compassion and excellence, the general rule of this proverb is that will open doors to significant opportunities. And so that's the way you do it. And you know, I don't care if you're retired for 20 years, I don't care if you don't have a job, all of us, every single one of us sitting here today fits into this. And I'll tell you why. I had an elder in Queensland, he was an elderly man. And he used to say, well, I woke up this morning, God didn't take me home today. You know what that means, Garth? God's still got work for me to do here. And that man hadn't worked for 30 years. But he said he worked every day. As long as you've got breath in your mouth, as long as you've got air in your lungs, God's got a job for you to do. God's got work for you to do. And you know the great thing, and I say this so often, God never asks us to do anything that He hasn't already done for Him by Himself. And so as you go out this week, as we're about to break away from here, as you go out this week, I want you to go out knowing the work that He's done for you. He has worked hard in the integrity department. He has worked hard in honestly revealing who he is, his ways, his love, his salvation. We heard about it from before in Ephesians. In Ephesians, we read about the work of salvation. And he worked hard in the integrity department. He also worked hard in the compassion department. Even though all of us deserve death. I don't know if you're a Jeffrey Bingham fan from Ukraine. I was. And one of his favourite statements was, if God gave us the love we deserved, we'd all be dead. Even though we all deserve death, even though all of us had no rights or anything to offer, even though all of us were spiritually poor, even though he could have robbed us, he didn't. Instead, he worked with compassion in his amazing grace to save us. He invited us to be a part of himself and to serve him as the King of Kings and to journey with us. And he worked hard in the excellence department. When it comes to working for you and your life, do you remember Ephesians said before the creation of the world, he had us on mind. He thought of everything and he provided for everything. When it comes to working with excellence or working for you in your life, he thought of it, he provided everything you need. Nothing was left to chance with you before God. He covered everything. So he does it. He's worked with us with integrity, compassion and excellence. And aren't we glad he did? Because now we know whatever God has called you to do this week, you will be blessed, and I pray that it will go well with you. How about I pray just before we go and have a cuppa together. Father God in heaven, we just thank you for the time we can come around your word. And Father, we thank you for the book of Proverbs and what it teaches us. Father, I'm just conscious that as I pray today, we have people here when it comes to work that love their job or are retired. I want to thank you for them and for the contribution they've made. Lord, I know there are people in this church that are starting new jobs or looking for jobs or even going for new jobs, and I really want to pray for them. I pray that they will know your peace and understanding in this journey. I thank you that just as much as they've put in the work, that you have as well, and I pray that they will know your blessing and your guidance in this area. Father, for those that are really struggling and have been looking for work for a long time, finding a job is hard, I pray for them. I pray, Father, that you will help them find employment, especially in their time of need. But Father, I pray as well for us that if we know these people, that we can show compassion to them. Help us that have lots to provide for them as well, because that's the way your economy works. And so, Father, we just thank you for today. We thank you for the book of Proverbs. We thank you for what it's been revealing to us. But Father, above all, I thank you that you don't ask us to do anything that you haven't done for yourself. And with that, we say we love you. We are so, so grateful, and thank you.